Hello, welcome and welcome back. I have already filmed this video once and I hated it and it was going to take a lot of editing and I stumbled over my words, so I'm going to try and film a cleaner version that doesn't need quite so much work. And if it doesn't work out, then there may not be a video this week. Who knows? I have my non-coffee caffeinated beverage and a time limit, so let's get this done. This video is a little bit different this week. So some background first. For a long time, let's go even farther back. When I was in like high school and elementary school, I read a ton. I read so fast. I read books that were beyond my grade level. And then when I got to college, that dropped off dramatically for whatever reason. And it has been really difficult for me as an adult to read very much. And last year, I started reading again. I had a couple buddy reads with some friends, and they were really good, and they were really fun, and it was good to like talk about the books with people. And also, like, they were books that I hadn't read very much of. So, and by books that I hadn't read very much of, they were different styles of books than books that I had read previously. I'm pretty squarely in the speculative fiction camp even today, but I branched out into some real world fantasy, like the Daevabad trilogy, what is it called? The Immortal Life of Addie LaRue, The Secret Life of Addie LaRue, or something like that. I think it's Secret Life of Addie LaRue. Books that are sort of grounded in the real world, but they're a little bit different. So another good example of this is the Temrir series that starts with His Majesty's Dragon. It's alternate history in that case. I suppose the Daevabad trilogy also counts as that. But I wanted to keep that going in 2024. And I don't usually make New Year's resolutions. But this year I made a goal, not a resolution, a goal, to read 24 books. So that's 2 books a month. And I thought a good way to keep accountable was to talk about it. So I want to talk about the books that I read in January. Now these are paperback trades, they're graphic novels, they're audiobooks. I do not discriminate as long as I am activating the reading part of my brain, which, yes, audiobooks do. I will fight people about this. But let's get started. So the first book that I read was really finishing up a trilogy from last year. I read Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is the 3rd book in the Book of the Ancestor. I could show you the previous books, but I loaned them all out, apparently. This book, I really enjoyed this trilogy. I loved the way that Holy Sister wrapped things up. Before I get any farther, a word about spoilers. If you are worried about spoilers, I will try and put the time tag for when I am done with this book up, And then at the beginning of my next 2 books, I'll put another time tag up. So let's get back to Holy Sister. I was really quite astounded about this book because he wrote teenage girls so believably, so sympathetically. He didn't he didn't turn them into caricatures. He didn't just write about their negative qualities. He didn't, turn them into walking stereotypes. He made them real people, but believably teenagers. And I thought that was incredible. I cannot say enough good about the Book of the Ancestor. I thought that the world building was really, really captivating and engaging, which is usually something that is really important to me. I like to chew on world building and innovative magic systems and really compelling worlds to inhabit are kind of what draws me in more than character in a lot of ways. But this book had it all. It had a complicated plot. It had engaging characters. It had just, how do I put this without sounding patronizing? Like the representation of differently abled people, of non-het relationships, of all of that. It was just so, it was done without comment, and it was just a part of the story. And it was so good. It was so good. And I went into it fully expecting a straight fantasy book, because of the way that it was framed, the first one. So the first one is Red Sister. Because of the way that it was framed, I saw that there was a pretty hard magic system, and I expected it to be full fantasy. It's not. It is a beautiful blend. It is on a planet, Abeth, that is becoming ice-locked. So it's essentially during the heat death of the universe, and the planet Abeth is entering into a permanent ice age, and there's only about a 50 to 100 mile corridor around the equator of habitable land. Yeah, the world building. So this book wrapped that up in a way I didn't expect, but a way that felt satisfying and I enjoyed. It was kind of difficult to get into this because it was set up a little bit differently than the other 2 books. There was a time skip between the second book, Gray Sister, and this book, and that was a little bit of a hump to get over. But it paid off, and I will recommend this book to basically everyone I come across. So that was the first book that I finished. This was wrapping up essentially what had started as a buddy read. We all read Red Sister together, and then we went through the rest of the trilogy at our own pace. And so this was me wrapping up. The second book that I read was Squire. So this is a graphic novel. It is written by a Palestinian American, Nadia Shammas, and illustrated by a Jordanian American. I am going to struggle with that last name. Sara is a Jordanian American, and so they pulled a lot of their experiences in crafting this story. I found this because I wanted to find speculative fiction that was not written from basically a white European perspective. I wanted to add a little bit more color into my reading list. A little bit of rainbow, a little bit of, yeah. Anyways, and so I selected this one because it has been a while since I read a graphic novel, and it is beautiful. I loved turning the page and seeing the illustrations. I think that those were really well done. They were beautiful. They were reminiscent of real places in the Middle East, especially. But and I think that the artist admits or does say in the back that she pulled a lot of inspiration from when she would spend summers in Jordan. And so I think a lot of these vistas are very reminiscent of views in Jordan. But I thought that it was beautiful. I thought that it was a really satisfying story. I wouldn't say it was a happy ending, but it does end well. Everybody goes through arcs. The premise of this one is that Isa, who is the main character, she's this little scrappy shorty. She's much smaller than everybody else. She wants to become a full citizen in the empire in which she lives. And so she hides her heritage. She wraps up these cultural tattoos that she has on her wrist. And she goes into Squire training to one day become a knight and have stories written about her. And it was a lot different than reading a novel, which I had forgotten about. It just the format of graphic novels means that stories have to be very spare. They can't have a whole lot of complications. They have to be fairly straightforward, or they will just go on forever. This will be like 3 times as thick. But nonetheless, it was a satisfying, beautiful story. There was an aspect of redemption for an old veteran. There was an aspect of sort of becoming reconciled with one's heritage. I think it was really well done. So this was the second book that I read. The third book that I read, I'm going to bring this one back because it was an audiobook that is in the same universe as Holy Sister. It was called The Girl in the Stars. I almost said The Girl in the Ice. It's not The Girl in the Ice. It is The Book of the Ice, which is another trilogy by Mark Lawrence, also set on Abeth. Only this time it's set, I want to say, 100 or 200 years prior to the Book of the Ancestor. And it is following the people who live on the ice, so the ice tribes. And there is the main character, Yaz, who is different. And so she's going to be thrown into what's called the pit of the missing, because that is what they do with any sort of difference, because they are bred for suitability for life on the ice. It sounds pretty terrible when you say it out loud, and I think that's the point. But the story is essentially Yaz uncovering what that means to be different, what her differences are. It also sort of, it is a coming of age story, just like the other two. And how do I want to say this? I didn't like it as much as I liked the Book of the Ancestor, though I think that would be difficult. I just thought that some of the conflict resolution, when, you know, everybody is trying really hard, and it's like the scene in movies and animated series and comics where they're reaching and they can't quite reach. Oh no, are they gonna get it? And then at the last minute they grab onto whatever it was that they were straining so hard to reach. There were a lot of scenes where it was basically like the magic version of that, and done several times. and once or twice is okay. Like, you can even put that in the climax of the story, and I won't mind. But it was a lot. And I also thought that the main character was maybe a little bit too boy crazy. But there was still a lot of world building. The characters were really well written. You know, again, Mark Lawrence writes a fully believable female protagonist, a young woman. Like, I had no problem with believing Yaz as a character. And also, I want to mention that because this was an audiobook, the narration was amazing. Like, I will put the name of the narrator on screen, but she did such a good job. But I have one complaint, and that was that sometimes it seemed like she misassigned voices, and that got a little bit confusing. But overall, it was not a problem, and she was like she had a really varied accents for people. I was surprised when I heard her assign an American accent to one of the kids. Yeah. What else do I want to say about the Book of the Ice? I will be reading the second one. I just need to wait for folks to catch up, because The Girl in the Stars was supposed to be a buddy read, and let's just say it didn't happen that way. So that is what I read in January. Now I want to talk about what I'm going to read in February, because it's a little bit ambitious. The first one is one that I have already started. It is the 5th season. I've had so many people recommend this to me. And I am also reading this with a friend of mine. I know almost nothing about the premise of this. The back of it is, this is the way the world ends for the last time. That's it. That's all I know. I'm about 40 pages in right now. And I can say that it is interesting. I think it is another one of those blended sci-fi fantasies. Anyways, so that is the first book that I'm going to be reading. The next book that I'm going to be reading is So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. This is essentially, I think it's set up to where a girl is in conflict with her sister. So she is an avatar of some kind of the god of her people, and they are sort of moralistically opposed to these dragon riders, and her sister gets taken by the dragons to become a dragon rider. That's all I know about that one, so that one's going to be interesting. I believe this is young adult. I think this is properly young adult. The way that I described this and The Girl of the Stars makes it sound like it's young adult. I would not describe them that way. But I think this is for real, young adult. If my friend catches up to me, I will be listening to the second book of the Book of the Ice. So the first one was The Girl in the Stars. The second one is The Girl in the Mountain. I will be listening to that as well. If above, against all odds, if I finish these two and the third one, I will be going back to reread Royal Assassin. So this is the second book in the Farseer trilogy. I reread the first one a couple of years ago, again with a friend of mine, and then she went on to read basically the entire catalog of Robin Hobb in the world of the Elderlings. And there is a trilogy or a quadrology or something that I haven't read at the end of it, but I feel like it has been so long since I have read them that I need to go back. So this is on the if I get time list. Also on the if I get time list, this is not really reading, but it is journaling, so it's pen related. A friend of mine sent me a copy of a single player role-playing game called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. And it is a book. It is a beautiful book that has rolling mechanics and a whole bunch of prompts and alternate prompts and some really interesting tabletop self-safety tools. But this could be a fun journaling exercise if I had time. Some of these may end up in March. I think Royal Assassin is probably going to be on the secondary list for a while, just because there's so much that I want to read this year. But yeah, so I have an ambitious list, but I am excited. I'm enjoying what I'm reading, and I will see you all. Actually, I will not see you next week. I am traveling next weekend, and this coming week is going to be a lot. So just I'm not even going to bother. But I will say that the week after, I will be going back to my paper lab videos. So I will have a new paper that I am doing my writing samples on. And then the week after that will be more pen, ink, paper content. It may be kind of a grab bag of things. So yeah, I've got some things ordered and I want to play with them, and I may do that on video. We'll see. So I hope that everyone has a wonderful week, a wonderful 2 weeks, and I will see you later. Bye.